Okay, so I'm glad we could definitely make this happen. I know we've been meaning to do this for a while.
Yeah, I think we first, what was it, like 2 years ago, we first started
Yep, and
messaging everyone.
yeah, I know. I saw your art, and it really like blew me away. And I would like to get kind of just like a background on how you got started in it, and what inspires you, what's your educational background, maybe if it's relevant, things like that.
So we'll start with the educational background. I'm an engineer by trade, and I've been a huge fan of like MC Escher throughout my life. That's probably my biggest artistic inspiration.
Okay.
And then I like the surrealists as well. There's a ton of other mathematical artists and sculptors that are very, very cool. But yeah, my background is in engineering, and that has allowed me to kind of push the limits on some of the structural forms, at least for the public art stuff. It's helped me gain some projects as well. But the artistic focus, originally, it was mainly focused on trying to represent mathematical beauty in the physical form. Digitally, you can do so much, but we kind of expect a certain, I don't know, a certain craziness with the digital form. And if you can do something quite amazing in the physical form and kind of twist people's mind about how that was made or how it was produced, then I think you can, I don't know, create a sense of wonder, which is one of the fundamental human experiences that everyone can do. So most of the artwork that I've done has been public artwork, and that's got a little like subset of focus because you're trying to make something. You can basically make a jewel, like a giant jewel for a city, and just have something pretty. But ideally, you're producing something that is abstract enough that you can kind of see all sorts of different meanings, but it's concrete enough to get something out of it. So there's some structure, some conceptual framework to start to tell a story. But it is quite nice sometimes to have it so vague or so abstract that people can put whatever they want on it.
Yeah.
Seeing all sorts
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I noticed you did a big metal sculpture of, I think it was a hop vibration.
Yeah.
And I remember Eric Weinstein spoke about them and on Joe Rogan, and he showed it to everybody. And even though myself and most people watching like had never heard of this structure before, it seemed to just capture everybody's imagination.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think that's partly because of Eric. I mean, the way he speaks about things, the way he's able to articulate things, has been quite amazing. And when he said it's the most important object in the universe, like, all right, I'm gonna make one of these. I had actually come across it before he spoke about it, and it was something I was initially exploring, trying to figure out how to develop it and make it so I can actually build this in real life. And I kind of hit some stumbling blocks. I didn't get the full code figured out, and then I think it was like 6 months later is when he was on Joe Rogan and he first brought it up. And I was like, all right, I'm going to make this happen. So I developed it a little further, submitted it to the city of Manhattan Beach, and they accepted it for like a 2-year loan. So we built it. I have some video or some, there's some like time-lapse builds. During the process, was this San Diego Union Tribune, they interviewed me, and there's some photos initially when I had it in pieces. And then it's 2 ye's ago, basically, like within 3 months, it'll be 2 years to when it was supposed to be installed. Right. There's some mishaps with Manhattan Beach. It's still in my yard.
Okay, wow, that's
sitting there. It looks really good.
It's an amazing
yeah. So I have the base. Thank you. It is really cool. And I was going through like phases of it because it was very frustrating to build. I don't know if I ever posted, like, I have some time lapses. I had to build like this crazy diving board, and I was like basically strap myself to this post. I'm like leaning over and like welding down in this thing, trying to hide all the welds. And like designed it so it spins and does all these things. It was supposed to be in this windy area in Manhattan Beach, and there was some people change positions in the city, and it's not art isn't not necessarily one of the most priority things. And then once COVID hit, everything was thrown out.
I was gonna say COVID probably.
But yeah, we're gonna find a place to put it up.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure somewhere we'll definitely want to have that up there because it's very cool. I wanted to show it and some of your other structures throughout this. So if there's anything that you want to particularly highlight, we can share your screen, or we can share my screen, and I'll go through some of the ones that I liked. I saw some of recently you were working on. It's a snake basically, and it switches.
Oh yeah.
Basically, I mean, I keep snakes, so I have like there's like there are 30 snakes in here right now. So
oh dang.
Yeah. So I have some like king snakes and stuff like that have that pattern, and it switches between like a coral snake and a king snake as it goes through. I thought that was very cool. What was your inspiration for that?
So I was trying to design something like for Arkansas, and conceptually I was having trouble. There's a project for a sculpture on the side of a road, and I don't know anything about this town in Arkansas. And I love the trefoil knot for some reason. I just think it's beautiful. I can't like seem to not mess around with it all the time. Mm-hmm. And so I developed a construction method for one of the hearts in Kansas City that I did. And basically what I just do flat panels, and I slide it onto rod, and basically use rod throughout this overall shape, and you're just sliding things on. So if everything's even, you're just creating a straight line. But if you angle, just change the spacing, you can basically create all the formworks. And so I had done that for a heart. And what's another thing that's cool, you may have seen some of the, a while ago, people have done this same exact thing where you take flat panels and they just stack them up, and they made human forms. They did it vertically and horizontally. And so from the side, it just looks like a kind of a simple metal sculpture of a human form. But if you look on it head on, it disappears on you.
I think I've seen stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah. So that was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago that kind of went viral. And those are pretty sweet. But what happens is if you twist the panels, what ends up happening, some of the panels, you never can see through all of them at the same time. So some of the panels you can, some of them you don't. So by twisting it and then moving in relation to it, it doesn't just disappear, but it looks like it's twisting.
Okay.
So that you kinetic effect, even though it's completely static. And this kind of goes into, are you familiar with, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Moire patterns, M-O-I-R-E patterns?
Moire, like a Moire effect. Like, is it M-O-R-I-E or something like that? You get it on a camera? Is that what, like during photography sometimes? Moire.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it comes up all the time. But yeah, there's a bunch of things where you see it. One of the coolest things it's kind of a phenomenon where we just are seeing interference patterns between things, and it seems to just be a physical phenomenon, but there may be something specific to human vision that does something with it. I'm not sure. One of the coolest things that is sometimes when you're driving under an overpass, this is just like where you can find beauty and random crap. You'll see that there's chain link fence. You know, you're driving on the freeway, there's chain link fence on both sides. And if you're paying attention, which, maybe maybe as the passenger, whatever, you'll see this kind of hazy pattern form. And then as you get closer, this thing tightens up. And then you see basically bigger version of the chain link. And it's just the interference pattern of it. And it's super cool. So I was messing around with that and then starting to basically find this interference pattern with different shapes. The hopf vibration, the one we were talking about, when it spins, it looks like it's unfolding. Yeah. And that's just because of the same general thing. So the snakes, I was messing around in the trefoil knot, and the Ouroboros is a great symbolic form. And so I love the trefoil knot. It's been done before in images. I haven't really seen that many sculptures of it. Mm-hmm. I had done something in the past where it's an old animation, but I created, ended up being like a 12-3 knot or something. I can't remember exactly, but colored the panels so that these like snakes were like weaving through each other and then like consuming each other. So the colors were really changing as it was consuming. And I thought, I don't know, I'll just try that with this. And then, so I did the snake pattern, and then I was like, oh, what if I do the panels on different sides? I think I just started with black and red initially to see what it looks like on both sides. And as you spin around different parts, you see, and it is kind of neat. But once you go to the snake pattern and you're moving around it, I don't know, it just all of a sudden. So I kind of stumbled upon it, and I was like, all right, snakes, Arkansas. This is like a common, like, these things are deadly or not. And that you can, it's like perfect scaffolding for conceptual framework about like deadliness and mimicry and, whether or not, which one's better to be, honestly. Do you want to be the dangerous one, or like you can basically, is the biker with a leather jacket that walks into a bar, is he actually deadly, or is he the equivalent of a milk snake? Like, yeah. He might not be able to, he might just be completely tough. Yeah. Or like not tough that way.
I thought that was so cool. I think it made me think about so many different things. And like you said, there's so much depth to that idea of like, is it there even a separation between the two almost? Like, is what you're asking, like, is there better to be this one or this one? And it's like they almost are dependent upon each other in a way to even exist. But it was very cool to see. And it makes sense that when you added that third color in, like it just got so much cooler, because at that point, thinking about it, like if there's only two colors, you can't see the like generationality of the pattern. Like you can't see which one comes first. But once you have that third one, you get to see an order that's like much more defined, I guess. So that's very cool.
It's also strange that like, I guess it's not all that predictive. From what I understand, at least in America, it's predictive. The red, yellow, black, like the order, whether or not red is next to yellow. I actually don't remember the moniker, but I guess in South America, my stepdad was telling me sometimes there's no third color.
Yeah, you can't tell once you go to South America. Don't use that rhyme; it won't work.
Yeah,
it does work in the United States. We do have some snakes where red does touch yellow that are harmless, but we have no deadly snakes where red touches black. So like it does work in the United States, but it doesn't work in South America at all.
We just got to hope that, some Texan 30 years ago doesn't decide to let his, poisonous snakes out.
Yeah, exactly. Or someone in Florida. So
right, yeah, Florida is probably more true.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. But so what plans do you have for the future with your art?
So I'm trying to make big public art, and I'd really like, I don't know, I kind of somewhat came to the realization that it may be the case that so much of it is so plain and kind of whatever, like it is it's better than nothing. Most of the public art that you'll see, like corporate art, stuff like that, it's just something to kind of like put there. And gotten to the point where it seems like, you know, there's an IKEA store for public art, and it's just something to put on a blank wall. And, you know, it's better than having a blank wall, but basically I don't want to draw any attention to it. And I can't tell how much of this is because it's cities and public, like public infrastructure. Is it may be the case that you end up getting the effect where if the city doesn't hear about it, that's a success. And so if you make something interesting enough or outlandish enough or just kind of different enough, then you may have enough people that get mad about it. That the city hears a bunch about it. And it's easier to put up something that's simple, but doesn't really provide any conceptual depth. So I would like to change all that. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to do more public art, partly because you can get paid to develop it. So you can submit the ideas, get contracted, and then get paid to produce it versus just try to make something and then find a buyer. So that's been kind of my focus because I still work as a full-time engineer. Okay. It's kind of like I haven't quite jumped off the standard employment diving board or whatever. And so I'm going to be pursuing art in that form. I'm pursuing a couple other different projects. I do want to try to do like a community-based project where I don't know. I don't feel like there's strong community events anymore. I remember as a kid, we'd do block parties and stuff like that. I don't live in the suburbs anymore, but to try to build and create more sense of community. And so one of the concepts is to develop a large structural piece and either take like aluminum cans or some other structure. Maybe it's just scrap wood, like 2x4s and stuff like that. And basically you'll be able to purchase a PDF and just money goes to donations. So whether it's a food drive or something like that, basically do a cutout. You download a PDF, print it out, then you have to cut out this piece of wood. And then come December, everyone basically get 1,000 people. It's going to be hard to do, I think, the first time, but hopefully it'll get some traction. And then you can build, whether it's a giant torus or some other thing, but basically everyone comes together and you can lock these things together like a crazy puzzle that's, 6 feet tall or 10 feet tall. And then just have a little party or something.
That's such an awesome idea. Like, you'd have to have people like commit and know, who's bringing what piece. But that's
it shouldn't be too hard. I haven't developed the infrastructure for it, but basically everyone people sign up and then you purchase something and then you just move down the list, like PDF number 3, 6, and then you label it. One side you all paint one color, the other side paint it whatever color you want. And then you have like this, couple different crazy ideas. I haven't quite developed exactly what shape I want, and it'll probably either be a torus or a trefoil knot, because I just happen to like them. So that's one project I'm working on. And then I have been doing a lot of animations and digital work just because you can do so much with it. And then the NFT market it's quite compelling as far as a way to get paid. It's very strange what's going on with the NFT
I know
stuff.
I'm trying to figure it out, but
I mean, fundamentally, you're able to establish ownership of digital products. So now it's just like a collectible thing. And what's also genius, someone can take a moment in time and turn it into a collectible through this stuff, which is quite fascinating. Yeah. Like obviously like sports events and stuff like that, or a tweet or a speech or whatever it is. It's quite interesting. And it's also scary because you have some of it is like a stock market bubble that is very strange. And it's like, okay, what is going on in the world that people are spending $25,000 on a pixelated image of a face for an avatar? Like,
Yeah.
what is the exclusivity of an avatar in a non-existent digital world?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, very tons of digital stuff, but people are talking about buying art to hang in their digital home as if it's going to be important for the exclusivity in a digital world. And it's like, oh, well, that will be the case. There's going to be entire virtual worlds that are invite only, and people are going to want to be able to get in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's like, kind of scary to me because I think about like just like copyright and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm somebody who always believes that whatever you create, you should get credit for, but gets kind of like dicey when you make something public. It's like, who owns the Mona Lisa? Are you allowed to? I've noticed this in my live streams is like, if I play a song that somebody else, you know, came up with, then YouTube flags it, won't allow the stream to play. It's like, if you have a digital, I don't know, pixelated Mona Lisa or something like that, and you own the NFT, does that mean that you control who gets to show that ever in the digital space? I don't know. It's still like kind of a mystery to me, but it is very interesting to see what's happening with NFTs. I don't know how much, maybe I'm confused in how it links, but it seems to be kind of like the expansion on copyright in a way.
The expansion on what?
Like copyright?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert on this. I do think the most exciting thing is digital artists can now get paid for their work.
Yeah.
And like, so now a musician has a new way to sell art and confirm ownership and get paid for each song that gets downloaded, which I think is brilliant. So now you're kind of like democratizing access.
Okay.
And so, you know, I don't know what Apple was taking, but 20 cents or 50 cents, 50% of each song. And you know, most of those services are not taking 2.2% or 5%. It's much lower. And then the gallery platforms have become crazy, like Foundation, some of the bigger ones, but they're only taking 2% or something. And then during each sale, the artist will take a cut as it gets sold over time, which wasn't the case before. So, you know, the Mona Lisa is obviously different because he's dead, and that's, you know, super exclusive because, you know, Da Vinci's no longer here. And why so many arts, their value goes up after the artist dies. But none of that, as it gets resold over and over again, none of that previously went to the artist, the person who created it.
Yeah. Did you want to show any specific pieces, or do you want me to go ahead and try and show some things?
I guess let's start with what you think is what you found interesting, and then we can talk about it.
This is the snake that we were talking about earlier, just for people that didn't know what we were speaking about. I love the music that you choose for your art too.
Yeah, this is one. I don't know if this was Chopin or not. I had to start. My brother had given me some music that works on Instagram, but
it's very cool. Instagram's another one.
I had to start going to some of the classic stuff. It's free.
Instagram will get you. So this is the trefoil knot, right?
Yeah. If you go,
what was that?
I mean, it's choppy on my screen, maybe better on your screen, but if you go to the vertical one, you can get a better sense of the effect. And so what Tyler was talking about earlier is on this piece, just to explain it to some people if you don't quite get it, one side you see a coral snake pattern, and the other side you'll see a milk snake pattern, and it's just different sides of the panel. So it's a continuous shift and almost like a transformation as you walk around the piece or as it spins in front of you. So as the panel or get parallel, that's where you see that transition. And that's kind of what I was talking about before.
Yeah, that it does have like even like a moire effect at a certain moment that I'm familiar with from just camera work, photography work. But and then I saw this what was the uh like what's the process for coding something like this hop vibration that you have here?
So I use Grasshopper. It's a Rhino plugin, and within that, I just took a Python code. So fundamentally, what you're seeing is the hop that's viewable anyway is the shadow of a 4-dimensional object, and so what you see on the right there is a small sphere and with points on it, and so each of those points translate to what you see in the image. So you can take, so the hop vibration, you take a mapping of points on an S2 sphere, S2 being, there's 2 degrees of freedom, it's just the surface of a sphere. So the standard globe, any position on the globe is a point on an S2 sphere. Then there's a mapping to get to what they end up being great circles on a great circle just means that it's the maximum radius on a sphere. So the equator or any longitude and then the equator, anything that passes through the equator anything that passes through the equator, ends up, not everything that passes through the equator, excuse me, any longitude or anything that has the maximum radius on a sphere is considered a great circle. And so each of the points translates to a great circle on a S3 sphere. So it's a sphere in 4-dimensional space. And when I've talked to other mathematicians, and Eric's very comfortable with this stuff. He's a fucking genius. I do wonder if he can visualize what that would look like in his head, or if people just get comfortable with it. And from most of what I've seen from other people is they just get comfortable with the idea. And so now you can have these circles and just mathematically track these circles on the S3. But it's like, okay, well, how do you view them? And so then you can use stereographic projection and project that back into 3 space. So very similar to just shadow puppets, like you have your hand, you shine a light, and you're going to see some skew based on the light and the shape and whatever image you're seeing. It's the same exact thing, but you're going 1 dimension down. So with lights and shadows on the wall, you're going from 3D object, and then what you see on the wall is the 2D. So you lose 1 dimensional resolution, and so you get this series of crazy rings. So these are all in the 4-dimensional space on S3. Those are all perfect circles. But as you project them down into 3 space, you're getting more of an oval, and so you get the skewness of a shadow through the stereographic projection. And if it was done more accurately, these rings wouldn't be the same radius all the way through, but to be able to see everything and just the way it was coded, it made sense to do this. There are different mathematical ways to do the stereographic projection. Some have a much larger overall space. This one's constrained quite a bit to make it work visually. But there's going to be some resolution loss, and some are going to prefer, maintain or conserve angles and stuff like that, and others will conserve area and volume and stuff like that. So what you do see is the rings on the surface end up becoming basically a torus. And so what's also cool is each one of these, any point is going to have circles that intersect in one way or another. So you're getting just like a crazy series of circles that are all intersecting each other. So every circle intersects everything else. And so that is what like the bundle is fiber bundle. And it's quite fascinating. I'm sure some mathematicians are going to be saying something, but That's the best to my knowledge what's going on.
I think that's basically what I've heard it described as. I think like I got interested in this stuff when I was doing like a lot of philosophy regarding artificial intelligence, and
Okay.
this was probably like 6 years ago at this point, and um, I started like really making me think a lot about and trying to map the structure of like mind. And that's interesting. I like landed on like, I was trying to escape relativity in a way. So like faster or bigger or stronger and things like that. So I ended up with like four, what I call the primary perspectives, which are like inside, outside, separate, and oneness. So like this can like, it's like describing relationships between things without using size and speed and strength and all these other things that are kind of more relativistic. So like you can be, I don't know, inside of the universe and separate from your friend, but one with your mom, and outside of like your cells. So it like kind of shows like your relationship to the things around you. And it made me kind of like get more focused on this hopf vibration, which is a four-dimensional object as well, which is kind of it's odd how often that number comes up as like, I don't know, like the number of totality or completeness in a weird way. But it got me interested in knots. I don't know if you can see my screen at all.
Yeah.
But like
I was going to bring it up.
Yeah, I have a little
knot. It's
here.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's like it's a knot within a knot when you see it up close. So that always interested me. And then I have this thing, which I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but this is
it Ivan Black?
Well, it's called a connectrica, I think.
Yeah, is it Ivan Black or is it's someone else? I think Ivan Black made that, right?
He might have. I don't know who made it, but if you know, then that's awesome. Show
okay.
him. But
yeah, his stuff is very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. I think it shows a lot of like physics concepts as well. Like you can see singularity. It's like there's like four questions to like describe this. It's like there's a square, there's squares within the square, multiplicity. It's also a wave, which you can kind of see when it moves. And then it's also got this like spiral through the center, like a helix. And I always thought that was very cool that there's even like four ways to describe this structure, which it reminded me a lot of the hopf vibration. So it's been fascinating to learn about all these mathematical shapes because I don't have a background in engineering. I was a finance major. So
maybe get into the gauge theory that Eric can
exactly, like get into some economics.
Right. Yeah. He keeps mentioning, he's mentioned that book recently, and I want to get it. I just got done reading Mandelbrot's Misbehavior of Markets, and that's pretty fascinating. He makes a claim that the financial markets have a fractal formulation, and it's almost like scale independent complexity, which is what a lot of the fractal stuff is about.
Yeah. That's
similarity at scales. That stuff is super cool. I'm borderline obsessed with fractals.
Oh, I'm so obsessed with fractals. It is that like inside, outside, separate oneness kind of thing. It's like it is pattern independent of scale and speed and size. It's just like fractal is a pattern inside a pattern inside a pattern inside a pattern, and like it's all one pattern and it's all separate patterns because it's they're fractal, and it's very interesting to me. But so when you are looking at these mathematical shapes, I'm showing right now some photos of when you made the hopf vibration, the metal sculpture. What does it inspire? To me, they inspire like like I see the structure almost of like the structure of mind. Like I said, they remind me of what I was conceptualizing when I was thinking about artificial intelligence. And what draws you to them though? Like the trifoil knot and the hop vibration specifically,
Yes. So
or the torus as well.
yeah, the trefoil knot, I think one of the fascinating things is once you start to look at things like or try to imagine things on a local scale, and what that would end up being like. So with the trefoil knot, or the Mobius, so I was really obsessed with the Mobius, and so oftentimes what I'll do is I'll mix the Mobius and the trefoil. But what ends up happening is you end up getting like this weave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're on one path, you look at the other path, and maybe that one's higher for now, or you go up and the other one's down, and so you have some relation to other parts of the knot, and so the circle is ancient symbol for infinity. The trefoil knot has similar things. Same thing. The Ouroboros. I like the trefoil because you get a sense of separation. So it's it's a 3-2 knot. This moves around. It goes around twice, and it has 3 kind of passes through itself. Or does it go around 3 times and passes twice? There's 2 levels to it. So
I'm showing a picture. I think this is the trefoil knot right here.
Yeah. So it's a 3-2 knot. You get the 3 loops, and there's 2 levels to it. So any one kind of cross section, there's 2 sides to it. But
that makes
I think
so much sense in physics. Like that's mind blowing a little bit. But go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's beautiful, and what's also kind of interesting is pretty much any knot, or I shouldn't say any knot. Most simple knots, I don't know exactly what grouping of the knots there are that follow this, but if you just take any shape and move it, so you take any shape, any polygon. So in this case, it would be a triangle. You move it off center from the origin, and then you revolve that to make a torus. A torus with the cross section of the triangle, and then you add a spin. So you rotate it so that one point of the triangle spins to the other location, such that as you go around, it meets back up with the next one. So that would create a 3-2 knot if you did that, I believe. And so most of the simple knots, like a 5-3, most of the like where it only kind of, I don't know what the right classification is for it, these subset of knots, but you can basically create all of them by tracing a path on the torus. So you can take. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah,
okay.
Like I see that even in like the hop vibration and stuff. It seems to all be like different paths on a torus to some degree. Like, or just all these knots. I mean, hop vibration seems to be a knot.
Yeah.
It's like many knots, but in a weird way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that it is they're all circles. So you can, I guess, think of like interwoven or interlocking rings, where that one's kind of like basically an infinite set of interlocking rings. Like that one's pretty wild. I originally got interested in the torus stuff because of Valencia circles, which is just like you can basically create a torus out of by drawing a series of circles, and they all stack it. You just angle one set, and then you rotate them around, and then you mirror that and do that again.
Yeah.
And so I built this thing, and I put it up, and I was so excited, and then I looked up, and it was a giant donut on a stick, which I thought was kind of funny. Oh my gosh, I made a donut. So I think compositionally the 3-2 knot is beautiful. The one above this in this image is the 5-3 knot, I believe. It may be a 5-2. I can't remember. No, it's a 5-3 knot. Also very beautiful. I don't know if it's inherent in the human experience to find these things beautiful. But like fiveness is often very, very beautiful. And then the three, and it may be the fact that there's some ancient thing in us where these shapes were extremely important and we find them beautiful. And when society got reset, we lost the context of why these things are so fascinating. And I don't know, I wonder about these things and whether or not some of the shapes we see, like the shape for medicine that people will tie to DNA, like is that like an ancient understanding where this thing was really important and then people lost the understanding of why?
Yeah.
But still held on to the symbol. And so it came out like, or it persisted throughout human existence.
Well, then we find it in the double helix even. And it's like,
say it again.
Then we find it in the double helix. It's like ingrained in us that, are you talking about the caduceus? The double snakes? Yeah.
Right.
I think about that a lot because I have snakes and like, I've always been fascinated by their, like just the beauty of them. And for me, they always seemed like the perfect machine. Like these snakes here, this is my favorite species of snake. It's I'll send you some pictures of them because it might inspire some artwork from you.
Okay.
But it's called a Western green mamba, and they have these like overlapping, very long scales that are outlined in black. So they're green scales, but they're outlined in black.
Yeah.
And there's so much depth to them because it's like it starts as green, then it turns to yellow, and then it turns to this black outline. So it looks like mechanical almost. And I also, as somebody who studies like scripture and consider myself like, I don't like the word faithful, but God is like a big part of my life. And because faith implies like, it's just on faith. And I think that it's more involved than that, at least for me. But the serpent is like a big symbol in scripture. And, the serpent tempts Eve, and then also like, Moses' staff turns into a snake. And it's like, then you find the caduceus, the symbol of medicine. It's interesting because, like you said, your serpent, like your snake, that's the milk snake, coral snake, and you were saying, we're not sure if it's the deadly one or the non-deadly one, and which one is it better to be. And you were thinking about like that concept. In the Torah, there is numerical values to like the entire Torah, and the beauty that you can find it is kind of like infinite. And I found kind of by accident, but I had this prediction, and then I found it in the numbers, like that the Hebrew word for Messiah is Mashiach, which has like a numerical value of 358. And then serpent is Nachash in Hebrew, and that has a numerical value of 358, which implies they're like almost the same thing but from different perspectives or at different times. It's interesting that we think about snakes as being like so deadly, but then they're also the symbol of medicine, which is like saving you, which is just, it's very weird, like how there's like this duality to that symbol. Like you said, there are some symbols that maybe we lost touch with what their original meaning was, and or geometric forms, even like of what they originally might have meant. And I think about that stuff all the time too. So I'm not saying I have any of this figured out. I'm just saying I think about it. But
yeah. I don't know why I find it so appealing and so interesting, but I love it. And I mean, you look at cold fusion. People have been talking about cold fusion as being like, obviously it's not actually cold, but it's just colder than the sun.
Colder fusion.
Yeah, colder fusion. Like it's all developed on a torus, and there's a couple other things that are like the Hadron Collider, like the rings, and they got to do these things basically on a torus. And I have no idea, but it may be the case that there's some ancient thing with it, ancient importance. And if the hopf vibration is incredibly important, like, then it makes sense that, things are going to get simplified down for basically like pop culture and whittled down to something simpler. There is a guy on Instagram he's exploring like all sorts of different shapes for electrical, basically like he's developing, I don't know what the right terms are, but he's weaving coils in all sorts of different forms and messing around with it.
I think I've
and they're
seen
just
that
kind
guy.
of pretty to look. Okay.
All the
Yeah.
He does the electrical wiring is what it looks like. And yeah, I don't know what it does, but it's beautiful. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the metal, right? It's gorgeous on its own.
Yeah.
Talking about before. So the torus and then the hopf vibration, and then the trefoil nuts. So what I was trying to get at before is like, if you're I don't know, there's a bunch of different ways you can think about it. You can view it as just a simple object. And if you play some of these animations, like the trefoil knot or the one on the right there, I guess the one on the center video.
This one?
That one, yeah. So this one I think is interesting because it looks like it's spinning. So each frame is spinning, but if you like localize your vision just to one panel, all it's doing is spinning around a circle. So there's a circle there and the panels grow in size, so you get this almost like triangular shape. But because of the color of the panels, it ends up looking like it's spinning. So you're getting, I don't know, I'm obsessed with messing with our like optical understanding of what's going on, partly because it's a universal thing, right? Pareidolia, right? We see faces and everything, but we also, it's very easy to see motion when that's not there.
So there's no motion here? Nothing's moving?
Oh no, there's motion. So like, but it's not spinning. It's not rotating. The whole thing's not rotating.
Oh,
all you're seeing
is
just
going like that. It's just
on a ring. Yeah. Okay. That's all that's happening, is each one is doing that. But it ends up looking like it's spinning as it's going.
Yeah.
And so the hopf vibration sculpture, I called it emergence because when it spins, it's supposed to spin in the wind. Hasn't really been fully installed anywhere yet, so I haven't seen if the wind will be strong enough to do it. But that one looks like it's unfolding, and I have an animation of that one too. But that's a fundamental experience where something appears to be doing something and we know it's not, and it's beautiful, and it kind of captures our attention, and it fundamentally shows you how your mind can be kind of deceived. And that's, I think, one of the most important things is just to remember how fallible we are. Like all sorts of different things, and we're pattern recognizing machines. It's fundamentally like what our brain is good at, is pattern recognition. That's where stereotypes and all these other things come from. And we're going to categorize, group things, and because of that, we're going to treat all sorts of different things in different ways. It's a way to simplify the world and then act, right? Yeah. And then we're going to pay the cost for how improperly broad the category is or improperly narrow. Yeah. And then, of course, the issue of things just on the edge of the boundary. And because we need to act, we have to simplify things, and there's going to be issues there. And so I guess, like, fundamentally, you can just make something beautiful and give someone the appreciation of beauty. That's a great thing on its own. And then to add some sort of experience of wonder, and to get more of the more conceptual thing where you can anchor this concept of like, oh, I see things as happening that aren't there. I'm mind reading, or I think there's this giant conspiracy, or I'm denying a reality that something's happening when it is, because I don't want to think about it. You can visually anchor it for somebody. It becomes more and easier to process. So that's all kind of one of the inspirations for a lot of these different sculptures is to kind of produce that idea, and it's devoid of almost all context. So it can be applied anywhere, and it's approachable from every culture. You don't need a background of, let's say, Christianity or Islam or Harry Potter. It doesn't matter. You don't need any context. You're basically getting the human experience relative to this object. So that's what I think is very cool about a lot of the mathematical structures, is they are like culturally independent. And it's just like this interactionality in the human experience.
Yeah, that's why to me they just resonate so much with my, like, the philosophy work I was doing on like the structures of mind, because they mess with and appeal to, and they universally mess with and appeal to our just mental faculties, I guess. Like you said, our categorization and our perceptions, and it's totally independent of your culture. It's just intrinsic to the human experience.
Yeah. And then you end up getting a new, like, I guess it allows people to connect across cultures is the other side of it. Yeah. And that's one, I think, of the importances of art is to be able to connect people in ways that they see people and have a similar experience, and connect with people that they don't think that are similar. But right now, everything's so divisive. It's kind of.
I think that your art and art like it has a lot of potential to bring people together in times that are like this, that are just so, where everything is so divided amongst culture and, like everything else that, race and, religion and gender and every kind of, division that people can look for. But it's, like you said, a lot of corporate art kind of is bland, you think, because it's trying not to piss anyone off, really. And like, I think that art like yours, that's really looking at these mathematical structures, has the ability to be extremely interesting. And then also, I don't think that it will piss people off. I just think you need like brave enough city officials to just like install giant hop vibrations at the beach or something.
Yeah. And part of it is like, a lot of the times, the people that are approving it, they may not be, they might not understand art the way most people do. People on city council, and art is very strange because it's one thing where everyone can judge it, right? And that's totally fine. But people have very, very different opinions. And sometimes if they don't get what the message is, like, they just think it doesn't make any sense. And like, it doesn't necessarily make sense. Sometimes it can just be beautiful. And people, I don't know, there's all sorts of weird reactions you get from certain people and expectations about what art should be. But, that, whatever, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, I think to be beautiful is to make sense.
The city council. Yeah. It's, I don't know, the whole thing's strange. There's certainly a bunch of art I don't like, and some people enjoy it, and it's like, just like the more obvious thing is music, right? Like, we grew up listening to certain types of music, and some stuff is gonna, the classics of any, or like, what's the right term? There's great songs in every genre that pretty much everyone will go ahead and say, yeah, that's at least amazing. It might be my taste, but you recognize the skill in it. In fact, Eric and Joe had some.
I was going to ask you about
that. Joe was not paying attention in my mind.
Yeah, I think so.
And obviously they kept going back and forth, and Eric's like, "Wait, are you making my point again?"
I know, I saw that. I feel
got
like
a little twisted.
The point should have been made not so much like, is this great art or is this beautiful art, but can we at least agree that it's art? It's like, can we, it's like the fact you can say music is universal, but not necessarily like that, you know, beautiful music is universal, because you might like heavy metal and I might not, but we can both agree that it's music. It's like, I don't know how you can tell, but there is some ability to tell that, like, yeah, I might not like that, but it's definitely art. Or I might not like that, but it's
Right.
definitely music or sculpture or painting or anything like that.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I guess I would boil it down to everyone can recognize a certain talent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like some of the greats, I mean, I think everyone would say, yeah, that person has
Yeah.
talent, but some might go, yeah, but it's not my taste. I wouldn't throw it on. But that
Yeah.
guy definitely nailed it on the skill.
Yeah. I definitely think skill is universally viewable. And there is something even extra about art that I think is universally viewable. Maybe it is like the lack of like usability inherently, like not like when you make something that's art, like I'd like to get maybe your definition of art, because is a beautiful sports car art, because it's also, I mean, it's somewhat useful, but uh, or is it like, do you think art has to be something that is for the sake of itself, really, like a painting?
Right, right. So, so like I mean, I'm not an art historian, but for the longest time, I've almost like people would create things, and if you cared about it, you would make it artistic in some form or another, unless it was just pure tool and it was going to break. But people personalize everything. I mean, we are constantly doing it, whether you're putting a sticker on a car or the crazier people put eyelashes on their headlights.
Yeah.
But like we get a certain phone case, and it's not enough that it's just a certain color and it's protected. People personalize everything, and that you're adding flair to it. Sometimes, I don't know, it's certainly in some ways artistic, but I wouldn't say so. Like a painting, is a political cartoon art, or is it propaganda? Like, I don't know. There's all sorts
That's a good
of
point.
weird, and art for art's sake. To me, that would it's self-referential, so it doesn't really do much. But most things in the past used to be ornate and used to have all sorts of beautiful structure to it. And throughout the Industrial Revolution, a lot of that, I think, was removed for efficiency, which isn't that big of a deal. And you'll see all sorts of things today where people will, like IKEA, they added imperfection in some of their glassware for the aesthetic appeal. And you'll see a bunch of different things like that where they'll add a certain level of randomness to make it look like it's natural or this or that or handmade.
Like ripped jeans.
We appreciate that. Say it again.
Like ripped jeans.
Like yeah, and it's worn and history and stuff, and there's all sorts of weird things with that, and some of it, you'll some furniture is distressed when you buy it so that it ages well, right?
Yeah.
And that may be the case with jeans, where we'll notice a small tear, but if it's torn stylistically, then that's the way it's supposed to look, and you can do it well and whatnot. As far as a definition for art, I would say generally, I guess I don't have a good definition for it, but it's usually something that's going to transfer some sort of conceptual meaning visually, or at least with the visual. Music is going to do it auditorily, but through some sort of physical experience, you're going to transfer some experience. Yeah, I guess that in the most bland version, that's what I would say.
Okay. Yeah,
I think
it's very hard to.
Yeah, right. Better art is gonna be either have more conceptual depth or transfer the information better. I mean, like poetry is amazing because you can, through just words, you can give someone you can give someone the full depth of sadness or joy or love just through, a certain pattern of ink on a page. And there's certainly something there. So it's not like it's, I don't know, we all understand that art is real, but yeah, I'm sure there's better definitions than what I provided. In the most abstract sense, you're transferring some level of experience through some physical form.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I have kind of another like weird question for you. It's not probably super easy, but I think a lot about, and I think this is kind of a problem in our era in every field from math to architecture, is that we kind of replaced beauty. And you hit on this a little bit when you were talking about how like things used to have a lot of character and stuff like that before the Industrial Revolution. I feel like we've been confusing the concept of beauty with sexiness in a weird way. And like this, it's like, I don't just mean as far as like human beings, I mean like in everything. So I kind of think about this as like beauty would be like eternal and timeless, and then sexy would be like local in its appeal, I guess. But I wanted to get like your thoughts on this idea of like what is beauty, and like you were talking about architecture, so maybe you can relate it to architecture in some way. It's like, a lot of people when they first started these super modern buildings, they thought this is like, it's a good looking building. It was super simplistic, and but then as time goes on, we look at, you look at something like, I don't know, like some super modern just cube building or something like that, and then you look at something like what's that church in
right?
The church in Spain, the La Sagrada Familia. Like that's like the total opposite. It's just like, I don't even know how you come up with something like that with that level of organicness and detail. But I wanted to get your thoughts on those two concepts, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So part of it, I think, is efficiency. And so they're going to sacrifice certain things for efficiency, and just the cost of building some of these buildings. Business park is like, I don't know, generally a lot of these buildings, I guess the modern sense, the glass buildings, at least is what I understood it from a course in college. There was an architectural kind of movement to create a sense of transparency for these large businesses and corporations where people are meeting, to have, like, if you make the buildings transparent, there may be more of a sense of connection and honoring the overall like ecosystem or culture at large, instead of just extracting wealth and rent seeking and stuff like that. Glass is pretty expensive, and you require a certain level of extra cost anytime you make an all glass building, which is why warehouses aren't glass, right? It's all concrete, brick, and CMU and whatnot. or, the tilt up buildings where they make a concrete slab and then they tilt it right up. So a lot of it is efficiency. And then you're getting a lot of people adding small features or paint or all these things to make it more aesthetically appealing. When it comes to those cathedrals, they had a different goal in mind. And a lot of it is to imbue a sense of awe and power. So like you can look at, it's another college course thing, but some of like the tribes, like anthropological studies of different tribes in South America, and they're producing, so like they would produce these just enormous, and they were just basically almost like a simple tent, these tilt up arms and then a roof structure, but very domineering, very dominant, forceful concept. And it's to create a certain experience as you're going in. But a lot of stuff is people are making cheap stuff that's good enough. And we really appreciate when something is done well. I would say that one of the coolest things, like fractals are very cool. And a lot of the ancient structures, cathedrals and stuff like that, one of the fascinating things is there's different information at different resolution. And so from a distance, you see a certain scale, you see a certain form. And as you come up, you see all the different detail and pattern work and stuff like that. And a lot of that is gone. And that is something I don't think I've necessarily captured it, but that's something I'm very interested in and including in a lot of the artwork that I'm like conceptually producing currently, is how do you end up create a sense of infinity in such a small space, and how to do it cost effectively is the part, right? That's the real skill.
Do you look at like Mandelbrot sets ever?
Oh yeah. I'm a huge fan of Mandelbrot. It is so beautiful. There's a bunch of good documentaries, and the fractal zooms have gotten so much better just in the last decade.
They go on for like 4 hours on YouTube sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, how much computing power?
Right. I remember in college, I had seen one that was 10 minutes, and it like you're glued to the screen. Mm-hmm. For some reason, you're to it, and then you realize, 10 minutes, and now it's 2 hours of that. And it is absolutely marvelous. What is just a mathematical set. It was just a solution set to a simple recursive algorithm. And then, colors based on how fast it goes to infinity. And you're getting some of the most beautiful forms and patterns that I guess I don't know. It's hard to compare anything to it. It's just so amazing. It's really, it's so cool. The modern world is largely efficient. And there are a lot of, you go to certain cities and like, it's dull and boring and it feels plastic and it feels weird. And we kind of rebel against it. Like, we don't like those spaces, and we may not know why, but art really makes things better. And, just good design. You look at the iPhone, right? I mean, good design, and you can change the world with it. There's been movements where the form follows the function. The whole Bauhaus movement was really focused on that. And they were I don't know how true this was before, because you can look in the past and a pair of scissors was a work of art. Like, it wasn't just a scissors with handles. It may not have been all that ergonomic, but there's floral detail all over it. But the Bauhaus movement was really trying to bring aesthetic beauty to common household products. And that really did kind of set a new expectation for things. And where it is a lot more commonplace. It's not just that it's something works, it's that it's something quite pretty. So in some sense, the modern world, it really does kind of accomplish all of these things. I do think there's a current movement to kind of simplify everything. And it goes through waves. And there's going to be, I think, some level of appreciation for detail that is going to grow a little bit more. But I mean, when the iPhone first came out, even just the images and the overall structure had more complexity, and it's changed throughout time. And some of it got way more bland. Some got a little bit more detailed, but just even the app icons, it went, everything became rounded and almost infantilized in some sense. And I didn't come up with that, but I've heard someone recently talk about it as like someone produced more of a well-rounded thesis. I don't have the reference for it, but the general like infantilization of society, like Joe Rogan's terms, nerfing the world. From a social point, it's very clear in all these different ways. Simultaneously, while people are basically justifying violent crime and violence in general, people are expecting everything to be nerfed. And it's such a weird, it's similar to like the whole feminist movement, and then the 50 Shades of Grey was the #1 selling book. It's just like there's just a general truth, and if like there'll be fashionable movements, but we are humans and we have like the legacy of evolution inside of us, and so it's going to come out one or another, and hopefully in the healthiest way possible. But you can't suppress it for long, and you can't suppress beauty. You can convince someone that this is the best way, or this is the cool thing, and that kind of what popular music, pop art is. Like if it doesn't last, it's just like kind of fashionable for a certain amount of time because it's new. But over throughout history, basically things are judged more appropriately, and some things are going to be missed and should have been more popular or should have lasted a little bit longer. But history becomes a better judge of what is truly valuable. You can only trick people for so long. Yeah. And like a crowd, a sense of a crowd and popularity can do a lot for people. Music is the most obvious where something is popular, but you hear it 10 years later, like, man, why did we like that? Or why did we dress like that? Or, oh, man, those cars just don't look good anymore. And stuff like other cars, like, we consider them classics because they stand the test of time, because there's something truly beautiful about it is what I think. Yeah. Hopefully we're creating those things the best we can.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I really appreciate you jumping on here and speaking with me. I definitely would love to speak with you again. As you produce more art and ever want to talk about it, let me know, and we'll get the Zoom thing worked out and
right
figured out. But like I said, I really appreciate it. And is there anything else that you'd like to show off or talk about before we wrap it up?
For now, I don't have too much to pitch or anything. I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm down to come back. It would be cool to maybe send me that image of your favorite snake, and maybe I'll produce something.
That would be awesome. Where do you have?
Maybe we can.
What was that?
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you to plug your website, but I'm putting it up for everybody to see right now, and your Instagram.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I post everything on the Instagram. I got to update my website. In the future, I want to do a T-shirt series, and maybe the snake pattern is a good way to do it. And basically a way to just support different organizations. I do think one of the coolest things is people do have a hunkering to help out if they can, but there's so much nonsense in the world. You don't know where to put your money to actually do good in the world. And so I think it'd be cool to basically create a series of T-shirts of different organizations, make some beautiful graphic art, tie it to an organization that has been vetted and is actually doing something positive, where your money's, actually, it's not just going to admin and whatnot. But yeah, once I got that figured out, it'd be great to come back on and put some stuff together.
Yeah, I'd love to help out in any way I can. So just let me know. But this was awesome.
All right. Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks a lot. All right. Bye.
Cheers.
Okay. That was Nico Meyer. We've been meaning to do that for a long time. Definitely check out his website here, which is njmeyerart.com, and Nico Meyer on Instagram. His work is incredible, and I hope to have him back as he continues to make more incredible art.